Hello everybody and welcome back to another video for the day. We are heading back into r/AmITheDevil, and if you guys would love to be absolutely amazing, show your support and see more videos like this one in the near future, be sure to hit the like button, leave a comment down below to start up them wholesome internet discussions, and if you guys have not already, subscribe to the channel and turn on the notifications. Also, if you guys would like to save 10% on your next order of gamer subs, use code Tommy at checkout or click the link down below. It will automatically apply the discount to your transaction, and it helps support the channel. Am I the a-hole for pushing past my FWB's hesitation when he was already insecure? Edit! Okay, had a conversation with the guy. He did not express anything like you all are making it seem. Maybe some performance-related embarrassment about the situation, but nothing about it seemed something that he didn't want. So, F met up with a guy, M, that I'd been talking to for a while. Before we even met, he had a habit of doubting whether it would actually happen, asking things like, "Are you playing me?" or "Is this really happening?" The night before, he also mentioned, "I'm not going to take off my shirt." I'm mentally like, dude, what do you think you're doing bringing that up literally the previous night? But when I jokingly said, "What if I say the same?" he immediately flipped to, "Okay, you take your shirt off. You take my shirt off then." I responded with, "I would have anyways. Convincing you was the formality." It was mostly playing around, and when we actually met, I didn't push it at first. The day of, he got really anxious right before we met. Texted multiple times, dropping a missed call, and saying that he wouldn't come unless I had texted back, even though I had been texting him on the way. When I arrived, he showed up late even though he had set the time. We planned to meet at a hotel, but I got my period earlier that day. I let him know, and he said that he was fine with it, and he even brought up trying period shufflings around. So we meet, make out, and then he suddenly goes, "I forgot the rubbers." I'm like, dude, what the frick, but whatever. He goes to get them and comes back. We start again, things are going well, but then he suddenly says, "Actually, I can't get aroused because of the period thing." I tell him that he's overthinking, and he goes on a whole rant about how he's done it before with his ex, how it got messy, how there were problems with hotel management, but no, the messing around was great. I'm just sitting there like, okay. He then randomly gets up, checks his phone and bag, and goes, "I forgot my headphones because you called me and I rushed." At this point, I'm just internally screaming because he was the one spamming me with text and a mixed call. He was the one saying that he wouldn't come down unless I texted. And he was the one that set the time. But I just asked how long the room was booked for. And instead of answering, he pats my head and says, "Don't worry, girl. We will. Bro, did you call me over to watch reels or what?" And then he hits me with, "Are you regretting it?" At one point, he was on his phone, and I got frustrated and fed up, lying next to him, doing nothing. I literally grabs his phone out of his hands, said something like, "What the F are you even doing?" Kissed him and initiated again. I took off his shirt, and while he didn't resist, I noticed his whole demeanor changed. He clenched his jaw, avoided his eyes, and just kind of froze for a second. I should have stopped and asked if something was wrong, but I was frustrated. The hesitation and back and forth had me in an aggressive mindset, and I deliberately held back reassurance. And honestly, I was irritated by all of this hesitation and overthinking. Well, I'm not going to go into details, but we tried it, but it didn't last, and he kind of shut down before we could even properly get into it. He seemed fine during the before stuff, but kept shutting down whenever things progressed. I think his insecurities were creeping in, but by that point, I was too annoyed to address them properly. Afterwards, when we were lying down, he kept saying, "Are you regretting it?" I said no, and he pointed out that I was making faces. I laughed it off, but honestly, I was frustrated with how things had played out. When he asked if we should leave, I threw it back at him, and when he responded with, "What else are we gonna do?" I just gave up and said yes. Looking back, I feel like I ignored his discomfort in the moment. He never explicitly told me to stop, but his body language was clearly hesitant. And I didn't slow down or give him reassurance he probably needed. I was more focused on getting what I wanted and proving a point. I didn't force anything, but I also didn't acknowledge that he might have needed more patience from me. So, am I the a-hole? Edit. To all of y'all who were concerned about any sort of coercion in the situation, this was someone that has met me IRL. We had extensively spoken about meeting up. I was the inexperienced and younger one in the situation, with zero prior experience specifically. Especially about the dynamics, he was one of the who even suggested the arrangement. I was not one pushing for the meetup. In fact, it was the opposite. Edit 2. Y'all seem to miss the fact that every single one of my actions was reciprocated throughout. It was one instance of hesitation on his part, that too not directed at me. The only thing that you guys used to reach this conclusion was my internal monologue that I shared. With only the facts, I'm sure the opinion would be very different. Also, the way you people conveniently ignore that I was one repeatedly being asked whether I regretted it kind of begs the question of that the other person wasn't necessarily feeling forced. Yes, because if somebody's showing signs that they're hesitant, that they're not entirely sure about what the act was that you two were going on about that I can't talk about, then it's totally not like it would be probably a good frickin' idea for you to kind of hit the brakes and stop right there. Yes, and way to go trying to rationalize or justify it in that last part right there. You did a wonderful job at just solidifying that little devil flag on your head. Meanwhile, part of me is wondering how in the world you were able to type the title of all of this and for some reason then type out the rest as if that still wasn't enough to convince you, hey, maybe I'm the bad person in this scenario. And if you were really uncertain about what his thoughts on the matters were, how would you feel if things were flipped around and then he happened to have been doing all that stuff to you? Would you be perfectly fine? Would you be questioning things now? Would you? And looking in the comments on the post, people are saying that coercion is not consent. If he wasn't all gung-ho for it, then pump the brakes, stop. Just stop. There's no version of this where you come out in a good light. If somebody's hesitant with something like this, then you stop. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. You stop. Just because it was not a super blatant no does not mean go forward with it. I, 33M, am thinking about leaving my wife, 29F, to be with the love of my life, 29F. What is your opinion? How do some of these people get past the title and still wonder if they are the horrible person? Alright, but this is what the channel's for, okay. Sorry for the long post, but I need to express the whole picture. Yes, do go on. Oh, I'm not a proud or a saint. You can judge me, but please give me your sincerely opinion, okay, but you're not gonna like it. Advice or experience, again, you're not gonna like it. If something similar had happened to you, yes, and people are going to tell you things that you are not going to like. As the title says, I am thinking about divorcing my wife to be with the love of my life. We are together for the past 10 years, which 4 of them we are married. My wife is beautiful, kind, generous, considerate, and gentle, and has everything a man could ask to settle down. She was my first real relationship, but since the beginning of our relationship, I didn't really feel much excitement, butterflies, or anything. That probably had to do with our S-life. It was mediocre at best, dull without any passion. Even though that was bad, I chose to move on with this relationship since she was perfect in every other area. 6 months after we started dating, I met the love of my life. Let's call her Kate. Kate is shy, but adventurous on the same time. And we clicked immediately. We had this, and it was the opposite that I had had with my wife. Our chemistry was perfect. We met 3 more times, but I started having feelings for her, and same was happening for her too. So, I told her that I had a relationship, and that we should stop. But we couldn't really stop. We both felt guilty, but we met sometimes for the next month until she found a relationship, and we stopped. My wife moved in with me in the meantime. This with my wife for the next 5 years went from mediocre to bad. At times, we had this once a month, and it felt like a chore. I thought that I had some problem at the time, and I was so addicted to that. So it was mostly my fault that the shuffling around was so bad. I didn't try enough to initiate. My wife always had a low libido, so from her part, she didn't feel that there was a problem. Casual messing around was even more. We were like buddies all day together until we got married and my whole life changed. Kate messaged me 2 days after my wedding, and she was single. At the start, we just talked casually, but that changed quickly. I couldn't resist her, and we met again. But this time, it was different. The S was great, as always, but we became really close. We fell in love. We were talking all day, meeting whenever we could, living in our secret world. It was the first time I felt in love, and it was like setting free from a prison. Even though I was in that situation, I never gave any hope to Kate that we would be together. You would ask me why you didn't divorce back then. I don't really know. My therapist says because I didn't want unconsciously to disappoint my parents since I was raised like that. I will tell you that it was probably that I was mentally immature at the time to think that was the best for me. And naturally, after 1 year of our secret life with Kate, we had to stop again. 2 years passed. We had a beautiful son with my wife. Those 2 years, I was thinking about Kate regularly, but I couldn't do much until I saw her randomly this summer. Of course, she had to be single again. We met sometimes, and now I knew for sure that she is the love of my life. The one I was meant to be together for the rest of my life. I felt really lucky and cursed at the same time that I felt something so strong, but in the worst possible time. I had a child now. I couldn't handle that. Felt super guilty, and I told her that we should stop forever. I blocked her from everything and tried to move on with my life. But I can't really do that. I feel numb and empty most of the time, and I'm thinking about her constantly. I can't sleep for more than 4 hours for the past 8 months, and therapy doesn't help at all. I want to forget about her, but my heart is broken in half. Every cell of my body wants to be with her. She is my soulmate. My son is my top priority. I value him higher than my happiness. If I get a divorce, my wife and him will move far away from me. I want to be part of his life. Also, I don't want a divorce to affect him psychologically. Last week, I heard from a friend that Kate is still single and is waiting for me to go find her. She still believes in us and refuses to move on. How can I handle all of that? Tell me your opinions. If I choose to stay with my wife, how can I move on with my life? I fear I can't surpass the thoughts that my happiness is elsewhere, and it will eat me for the rest of my life. It's basically my happiness versus my son's happiness in my mind. I am desperate and miserable, so I will appreciate any advice. For context, I am with my wife for 10 years and know Kate for 9.5. So my feelings aren't careless because of the good messing around. As for my wife, I love her as a person. I spent my whole life with her, but I am not lewdly attracted. Ah yes, because lying to your wife for an entire freaking decade doesn't sound like one of the cosmically large douche moves that you could do. And I'll tell you this now, as somebody who actually has been cheated on before, I would have been feeling a lot less crappy if the person that I was in a relationship with had actually told me, instead of either me stumbling upon it or the person that they were cheating with come to me and tell me, hey, yeah, your significant other's doing some sketchy stuff. I'll tell you that from experience. So to be dating somebody for 10 years and then they suddenly find out that, they are very much going to be mentally messed up afterwards. That is a certified thing. Hopefully you make the smart choice in this, but unfortunately none of those result in you coming out with a positive ending.
The help is required. Okay, girls, please help me get out of this situation. I am really stuck in life where I feel like giving up. I am at my peak in downfall.
I am a divorced person from 1 year. I was in contact with my greatest and bestest female friend from like 10 years ago. At one point, we were also dating in the past 2017s to 2021s, but due to caste barrier, I told her that it was not possible, and she agreed. We were having lots and lots of problems between us, like we were fighting like heck. She cried a lot, and of the time, due to my behavior, I started blocking her for like months until she didn't even let me any time, and didn't block me. In fact, she would pray to God that bring him back. I remember one instance that I didn't wish her a happy birthday because we got in a fight before her birthday. And after that, she told me that I was only waiting for your message or call. But at the time, I didn't know that. She was very much depressed due to such behavior, and she started not to talk to me after 2021. And at the time, I was also engaged to my partner. But we have regular talks and calls and shared everything, and she was studying in her college far from me. At that college, she made many friends and started to forget me, but she knew that we don't have any future ahead. She lost all of the emotions and all of the feelings on me, and I don't like that. She had many male friends at college, and also sometimes shared cabs and rooms. I started to call her due to insecurities, and she told me that I was very irritating to me and started to block me and ignore me. But I still managed to talk to her, as she is a good girl, and after some days she automatically unblocks me. And now she's got a job and is not talking much with the guys except me, because I didn't like her to talk to anyone who was not safe for her. So I told her to meet once and planned to meet, and we both had a great and an emotional talk. She told me that I didn't even notice the thought of marrying me, and we both cried, and we promised each other to stay forever together. So from like the past 8 to 9 months, we started behaving like an unknown person to me. Meaning that even I sent her a message of good mornings, but she wouldn't reply properly to me, and I would feel like I'm forcing her to talk to me. She told me that I have very much a workload and I cannot handle it. I also insisted that 1 to 2 times to marry me because I was divorced a year back in February, and she told me that now it's not possible, that my father would not agree, and also that we have a caste barrier. We also had meetings and spent time together for 1 to 2 times as I went to meet her in her city, but then she didn't agree. Now, my main concern is that I'm not willing to marry any other woman except her, and she told me strictly no, that I would stay forever with you, but no marriage, and also not to force her more. Yesterday we had a huge fight due to my insecurities, as she was going somewhere with her male friends at night around 12, and I started calling her every 1 to 2 minutes. And after one or another things, I got angry with her that she gave her phone to another guy to answer my call, and the guy told me that she was in the washroom and was already at her peak anger at me, and told her that she was wrong and she intentionally gave the phone, and in reality, she was really in the washroom. Secondly, I also checked her Instagram once, and she was sharing some reels to a guy, and he was also saving her snaps, and seriously, I didn't like that much. After she returned home that night, she called me, and we had a huge fight, shouting and screaming in anger. She told me that why she met me, I don't really want to talk to you anymore, please go away, but still I managed to handle the situation. Then she told me that please give 5 minutes, I will call you back, and we will solve everything, and each and every problem you have with me, and I agreed. Then she called and clarified each and every concern of mine, and all of the mistakes was mine, and I was not understanding her. I told her that to forget about everything, our marriage is not possible, and talk to me only if you want to be my friend, and nothing much, because I don't have any feelings for you, nor have any emotional attachments. I don't want too much attached with me. I have agreed with her because I don't want to lose her, but at every second I was making mistakes, and that makes her irritated every time. I'm trying to fix everything, and at some point, everything happens in the reverse direction, and we start a fight. Please, girls, please help me in this situation. What do I do, please? And thanks in advance. So basically, you had a person who you initially got along with really well, things fell out, you guys wanted to remain friends, although you for some reason wanted to be absolutely controlling with them as if they were this person that was doing you wrong. Meanwhile, they just wanted to go do their own thing and live their life. I cheated on my severely depressed wife, as I don't have it in me to divorce her. My 35M, wife 35F, my 35M and wife 35F, and I have 2 twin boys who are 10, and we had a daughter who passed away mere days after she was born from a heart defect when our twins were 3. Both me and my wife took the passing of our daughter extremely hard, and my wife completely shut down, and she hasn't come back to the world yet. She doesn't leave the house. She lost her job, resulting in having to cut back as I make decent, but not enough for people plus luxuries. She spends her days either in bed or on our sofa, and any affection is non-existent to me or our boys. I'm a single dad with a useless roommate, essentially. I've tried everything to help her, from trying to talk to her to even booking therapy appointments, and putting her in the car for her to say nothing to the therapist and just sit/lay there. It's at the point where to have her bathe or change clothes, I have to strip her down and put her in the tub as the smell is unbearable. I've had her friends and family try to talk to her. Nothing is working, and I've had to stop trying as it was taking a huge toll on me and my boys. What breaks my heart most is that my boys don't look twice when their mother is on the sofa in 7-day-old pajamas, as it is their norm. I went out drinking with friends, and I ended up going to a woman's house and sleeping with her. I didn't even know her name. I felt bad, and I still do. But as awful as this sounds, I felt a lot less bad when I got home and found my wife in the same position that I had left her in when I went to work that day. I haven't told my wife or boys, and I'm not going to. I don't have it in me to divorce her, as the house is my premarital asset, and we have a prenup. Her parents are old and can't care for her to the levels that I do, and it's not her friend's responsibility, so I would essentially be making a severely depressed woman who I promised to love and support endlessly and unconditionally homeless. And what would I tell my boys? I made your mother homeless because she refuses to help and I want to mess around. I know I've gotten bitter and resentful, but I feel like I have the right to have. I would like to say that I will never do anything like that again, but I can't. Because if things don't change, I eventually will. Because I can't keep living like this. I don't have another 8 years left in me, and I do think that if I found it in me to divorce my wife, it would be better for me and my sons in the end. Maybe I'm a terrible husband, you are, and I'm gonna get torn into here, but I don't feel nearly as guilty as I probably should. Oh, don't worry, I know exactly why you don't feel that way and you don't feel as bad as you probably should. It's because your conscience hasn't really recognized what the consequences of your actions will be. And you know, it's not like somebody's depressed because, oh, let's try to put yourself in your wife's shoes. You happen to be spending multiple months, a full 9 months working on growing this baby inside of you, only for things to go horribly wrong and the kid is not able to live much after actually being born. And it doesn't really seem like you have that much of an understanding, just the kind of impact of everything that your wife happens to be going through. But with that, that is going to have to be with the video. If you guys would love to be absolutely amazing, show your support and see more videos like this one in the near future, be sure to hit that like button, leave a comment down below to start up them wholesome internet discussions, and if you guys have not already, subscribe to the channel and turn on them notifications. And I'll be sure to see you guys in the next one. Thank you so much for watching, and bye-bye.